I'm Drew.
And I'm John. This episode and every future episode is dedicated to the horror hounds and smokers out there who want to expand their knowledge of the genre and have a good time.
Some of you out there may remember a little film from 2004 titled Skinned Deep. It's batshit crazy and it's instantly memorable. Even if you've seen it once, odds are it's burned into your brain. John and I have sung its praise since back in high school when we first saw it. Recently, Skinned Deep was brought back to life in a boutique Blu-ray release by the good folks over at Severin Films. John and I are going to discuss the movie today, and we are thrilled to have the director and makeup effects maestro, Gabriel Bartalos, here with us today. He's going to spill his guts to us in an exclusive interview. All that and more today on High on Horror. Interviews, reviews, and the latest news all rolled into one.
And now it's time for Screaming Room, and this week we have Behind the Monsters Episode 2, which airs this Thursday on AMC, and it's on Candyman. I'm not as big of a fan, I'd say, maybe as you are, Drew. I know you're a big Candyman fan, but
I love Candyman.
I will say, as I said, I tried to watch the Hellraiser series, and after 2, it's all downhill. I think with Candyman, after the first one, you didn't need 2 or 3. I feel like that one should have stood on its own.
No, yeah, absolutely. When you said that I'm a Candyman fan, that is correct, but I am a Candyman fan in the sense that I am a fan of the original film, not the shit sequels. There should have never have been a sequel, and if they were going to do a sequel, the first one deserved better sequels, quite frankly. But yeah, I actually, one thing that I want to bring up, though, is that something that was said in this episode that stood out to me was that somebody said, I can't remember who the person was, I'm terrible with names anyway, but somebody said that Candyman is more of a movie monster and not a slasher. And I 100% agree with that. But Candyman and Pinhead, for some reason, from Hellraiser, are by horror fans lumped into the slasher category. And Candyman and Pinhead are not slashers. They are 110%. 100%. There is no such thing as 110%. They are 100% movie monsters. I wouldn't consider them slashers at all. So I think that that's still crazy that it goes around out there that people think that Pinhead and Candyman are slashers. I could understand why they might think Candyman's a slasher because he like kills people, but I mean clearly Candyman's on a different level, right, John? You get what I'm saying?
I agree. I had this argument with Nicole because you and I had talked about this, so I asked her opinion. Do you consider it a slasher or movie monster? And she said slasher, and I'm like, how? I said it's nothing like any of the Halloweens, Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th. Like, it's about high body counts, and It's just a lot of the slashers, not all. It's really not necessarily about any kind of story. It's just about high body counts. That's what I think of when I think of most slashers. It's a monster movie, and I agree with the same about Hellraiser. When I think of it, I don't think of the kills, I think of the monster. Like, I think of Candyman. I guess you could make that argument about Friday the 13th, but when I think of that, I also think of it along as with the kills. When I think of Candyman, I don't necessarily think of the kills. I guess you could say that about Hellraiser, but it's really just one kill in particular from the first one to me. But I agree. I don't put them in the slasher category, and until they got mentioned, I never even really thought that was a thing that they were considered slashers. So I thought that was kind of weird.
Yeah, it is weird. It's always been one of those things that's bothered me too, because I felt like I was the odd man out whenever it came up. I'm like, I don't know. Like, I mean, like I said, Pinhead and Candyman do kill people, but not in the traditional slasher film sense. And also, the difference between, and even so, I wouldn't consider either of them slashers, but Candyman is still so far different from Hellraiser. Even though they're both, based on books written by Clive Barker,
True.
They're totally different. And the thing that makes Candyman so different is that you compare Michael Myers, you compare Jason Voorhees, you compare Freddy Krueger, you compare Chucky. None of them have none of them have a social commentary. It's just like Freddy Krueger was a piece of shit. He was a bad person. and people got revenge on him, and then he comes back for revenge because he's an asshole and just can't let shit go. Jason, just constantly killing, just, an unforgiving murdering machine. Michael Myers, just evil incarnate. Candyman, a victim. So, I mean, like, it's the only film where you're sympathetic towards the killer.
Jason's a victim.
But he takes shit too far, though. He went way beyond the point of what happened.
They killed his mom, even though his mom was trying to kill for him.
But, yeah, so Candyman is a social commentary. None of the other slasher films, or a lot of the other ones, don't. So, again, Candyman just does not come on. It's I don't know. I hate it's like a top tier. I would consider it like a top tier movie in horror, but I wouldn't consider it a slasher film.
And if we're talking about of any of Clive Barker's movies being a slasher, I mean, I guess the closest would be Midnight Meat Train.
I mean, Midnight Meat Train, yeah, that's yeah. I'm trying to think.
Hellraiser does. How many kills are in the original? I'm sure us trying to figure it out on top of our heads, we'll get it wrong.
There's not many.
I'd say it's that for sure less than 10.
I think it's like 7. I want to say 7.
Is it that high?
It might be like I don't know.
I don't know, because then in that case, it wouldn't really be Pinhead. That's the slasher. Like,
yeah, it was more Julia and Frank that were the friggin' serial killers and the slashers, if anything.
Yeah, I mean, Pinhead just showing up with hooks.
Yeah, just hooks coming out of nowhere, just ripping your cheeks off.
RKO out of nowhere.
Sorry.
Yeah, I got us off track. Getting back to Candyman documentary. And another thing they brought up that I never really considered, but I was like, it makes sense, is that even if you want to include him into the slasher, name me another slasher that has as much personality into a character as Candyman. Like,
yeah,
like they pointed out, there's not. Michael doesn't talk. I mean, Freddy talks somewhat, but
he mostly talks shit.
Talks shit, and it's one-liners. Like, Candyman's like sophisticated. He's about art. Like,
he's like poetic.
Yeah,
very poetic.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, it's nothing without Tony Todd.
I mean, yeah, Tony Todd's performance is it's like Robert Englund is Freddy. It's almost sacrilege to see someone else in the role, though I do think that the new Candyman film by Nia DaCosta was fantastic, but you haven't seen it yet, so we'll stave off from talking about it. But I was surprised because I was expecting to not like it very much.
Yeah, I still got to see that one, but I mean, it was a solid one. Again, it was shorter than Halloween's episode, wasn't it?
This was like 33 minutes. This episode was only 33 minutes, folks.
And also, I was going to say, it was a lot like the Halloween episode, where about half the episode's devoted to the original, which, I mean, it should be. And then a little bit about the sequels. And it's kind of sad that on the third one, like, everybody involved admits it was not good.
Even everybody just admits it was a cash grab and that it was just a rushed. And I mean, it's terrible, man. Even if you haven't seen the movie, even looking at the quick scenes that it shows you in the documentary, it's not good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have much else to say about it. I mean, it's a documentary. You watch it, you'll learn some stuff. I mean, I learned a lot. Like, as I told you, I'm not as up on my Candyman knowledge as I am the other ones in the series. And then after this week, we get Child's Play. Well, Chucky.
Yeah, we've already watched that one, but we'll save that review for next week. And I think that with that, we're ready to smoke. So let's get on into Strainwreck. And now it's time for Strainwreck, the segment where John and I discuss which strain we're getting wrecked on in each episode. Today we're smoking some mixed strains. I just took what I had left of everything and put it all together. I definitely need to re-up soon.
Well, I just came from re-upping here. I got me some of them fucking bake bars. Got that tropical runts.
I know, that shit tastes delicious. Let me hit that real quick.
Yeah, that's probably that one, and their watermelon gushers and strawberry lemon haze are probably my favorites.
Watermelon gushers, yo, I need one of those. You're gonna have to hook me up, bro.
I mean, you don't have to fight Nicole for them.
You could just get me one next time you get them.
Nah, I'm not allowed to pick flavors, apparently.
It's me, bro. I'm your co-host.
I'll let him know. I don't think he's gonna care.
I'm gonna get this packed up.
So I was gonna ask you. It's October. Every year we do our list of 31. What were some of the movies you watched this month? I know we posted it on Instagram and Facebook, but just some movies you watched, maybe ones you hadn't seen in a while.
Yeah, I was gonna say that every year around like the last week of Halloween, I watch the same movies every year.
Same.
Always like the movies that are on or around Halloween, like Halloween, Hocus Pocus, Terrifier, Trick or Treat, Trick or Treat, the 1986 metal movie, All Hallows Eve, even Halloween Town, the Disney movie. I love Halloween Town. I still watch it. I don't
Season
care.
of the Witch.
Yeah, but yeah, in regards to the ones that I haven't seen in a while, I actually just recently rewatched The Void, the Steven Kostansky film, and that movie's fucking incredible. I rewatched that, and I watched The Innkeepers again, the Ty West film.
Nicole hated that movie. I made her watch it for the first time, and she absolutely hated the end of it.
Dude, that movie it literally divides people. Like, I have so many friends that love it, like you and I, and then I have so many people that are like, that nothing happened in that fucking movie, and it's like, that is one of those movies where you're divided, right?
She really hated the ending. I'll just put it that way.
Well, also, I revisited California. It's not really horror, it's more thriller, but Brad Pitt is a serial killer and he plays a piece of shit redneck in that movie, man. That dude definitely shows some range in that movie. Have you ever seen that? California with a K? I have not,
but I have heard a lot of good things about it.
Yeah, it's got David Duchovny, Juliette Lewis. It's a good cast. And then, yeah, pretty much just a bunch of old stuff. Changeling, Dawn of the Dead, nothing new. But yeah, I would definitely say that the ones I haven't seen in a while were The Void, The Innkeepers. Oh, and Goodnight Mommy. Goodnight Mommy is an excellent film. What about you?
I just, before I forget, it's not going to matter because this is out November 1st. But this year, Halloween 3 actually matched up with the days because it takes place on Sunday, October 31st. So it actually matches up. So I got to watch it again.
No shit.
Because actually it was my movie for the 29th, but then I found that out, so it's just an excuse to watch part 3 again. But 28 Days Later, I had not seen that movie in a while. I've probably only seen it less than 5 times. But I saw it in theaters. This guy showed up 5 minutes late to the movie, goes and sits down like second row. He's on his flip cell phone, as was the times. And he's just like talking to somebody and he's just being loud. He gets off the phone. He's still just like being loud. Somebody like 5 rows back just yells, "Shut the fuck up." And I joined in. Everybody in the movie theater just started clapping. That dude was dead silent the rest of the movie. Because he was ruining like the first like 10, 15 minutes of this movie.
I would have probably left. I probably would have felt like a piece of shit and left.
He probably should have, but I hadn't seen it probably in 5 or 6 years now, and it's still good. Nicole had never seen it, so I made her watch it, and she liked it, and she's not really into the whole zombie thing, but I guess they're not really zombies, apparently.
They're infected, yeah.
Yeah, but, they're zombies. Sorry, you're wrong. They're zombies.
Well, yeah, I agree.
But it's a great movie. Cillian Murphy's good in everything he's in, so, you just have to check it out for that. What else?
28 Days Later. Any other ones you haven't seen in a while that you watched?
I hadn't watched Frozen in a while.
Oh, the Adam Green film.
Yes.
Not the Disney film. Are you sure?
I've never watched the Disney one. I've only watched the Adam Green one. Sometimes it feels like the movie's just a little too long. But there's not really a whole lot you can do with just a ski lift. Although every time I watch it, I try to think of more ways they could have done it. I thought about what about if one of them laid down on the bench and the other one just kind of slid down their arm so they were a little bit closer? You got less of a chance of you shattering your leg and getting eaten by wolves.
One of the things that actually stood out to me was an inaccuracy that Adam Green himself pointed out during the commentary, was that again, I'm terrible with names, and it's been a while since I've seen the film, but the female in the film, the lead female actress, she urinates. She pees herself when she's up in the lift in one of the scenes, and it shows like the wet spot in her pants and all that. and that's actually like inaccurate. If it was really that cold, it would have frozen like immediately. But for the sake of effect, Adam Green allowed like the wetness of the pants to show for the for the drama, to take hold of the scene. But yeah, I agree. I agree. I think it about like the 35-40 minute mark, it drags a little bit, but then like it catches up. It definitely becomes like a roller coaster ride again by the end.
Yeah, and I always forget, and then when I watch it, there's always that cameo from Kane Hodder in there, just real quick.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I mean, homie wouldn't even get out to check after stuff's banging on his roof. I mean, to be fair, that probably been me too. I've been like, I didn't hear shit.
I mean, dude, it's Kane Hodder. I mean, it's if it's an Adam Green movie, Kane Hodder's going to be in it.
That's true. But one movie I did watch, and I put it on for the second year in a row, and you turned me on to it last year, was The Sentinel. I love that movie. I feel like it's an underrated 70s movie. Young Chris Sarandon. It was funny because actually that day I had unintentionally had Chris Sarandon movies back to back. I had that and Fright Night.
Yeah, actually, the Sentinel. I love the Sentinel film, and it's just like the novel. The novel by Jeffrey Konvitz. I was actually going to bring that up since you brought up the movie. I was going to say the movie is like page for page like the novel. Like it's one of the most accurate from book to movies transitions that you'll see. And actually, if you like the Sentinel, considering that the book is practically the movie on paper, you should definitely check out The Guardian. I know you're not a reader, but it's the follow-up to The Sentinel that never got made as a movie, written by Jeffrey Konvitz, and it's even fucking better. Like
Really?
that like the last page of that book made me like go back and read like the last 3 pages again. It was one of those where I was like, holy shit. Yeah, so I agree. I love the
I'll have
Sentinel.
to check that out on Audible.
Yeah, definitely. It's called The Guardian.
My audiobooks. Right now, though, I'm working on the Elvira book.
Oh yeah, definitely. I haven't read it yet. Nope, I'm still in the middle of the Bruce Lee book. I'm reading Bruce Lee's biography, or the closest thing there is to a biography called A Life. But okay, I wanted to bring up something to you, real quick. What is something stupid that you've done, like something really stupid that you've done while you were high because you were high? For me, it was ball tapping myself, but I was exhausted.
I mean, I've done that before on accident. Like, I'll go to move and I just didn't see something there. Just fucking smack that shit. That shit hurts.
No, like I was legit watching TV and like I just like wrist snapped myself for some reason.
Oh, what?
And I don't know why I did it. Like I don't know if it was too forceful. It'd be like a twitch of the nerve. So I don't know, but like my hand just like it was like somebody picked my hand up and just dropped it in my lap. And I'm just like sitting there like holding my nuts. And I'm like, what the fuck just happened? And my friends were like, dude, you just ball tapped yourself. I really don't know how it happened.
I'm trying to. There's been so much stupid shit I've done when I'm high. I can think about how I've annoyed people when I'm high. I mean,
that's easy.
I'll talk about just like strangers though, like affected strangers. So I mean, I don't know that that's necessarily stupid, but I know you and I at Monster Mania, that was hilarious.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
We the worst people in the world because we line cutters.
I forgot about that. Yeah, you're right. No, but that's not stupid. Think like when you think stupid, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Like, what's something you did? Like, you grabbed somebody's sandwich on accident at the Wawa or something, like that. Like,
I've got the wrong order at like McDonald's. I ordered like a Big Mac, and this person hands me a bag, and I'm like, this feels heavy. And then I got back and had like 5 sandwiches in it. I was just asking people, hey, anybody want a sandwich?
You didn't eat them all?
Not all of them. There was like 5 like burgers.
Oh, okay. So you probably took like 2 or 3 of them.
I mean, 3, yeah.
All right. Well, look, we were already smoking, man. So what's going on this week in horror history?
This week in horror history.
So yeah, once again, a lot of movies celebrating anniversaries. We have Carrie from 1976, underrated slasher movie, The Prowler from 1981, People Under the Stairs, 1991, Bad Moon, 1996, But the two we're going to focus on is Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge from 1985, and They Live from 1988.
Let me jump in here real quick though and say also that the original Godzilla film Gojira turns 67 years old this week.
Christ. I saw you wrote the Godzilla movie. I wasn't reading it.
Aging like a fine wine, I must say. Anyway, but getting into Nightmare 2 and They Live, classic 80s movies right there. I always liked Freddy's Revenge, honestly. I mean, Freddy's mean and scary in that movie. He has some of the best makeup. That movie has some of the best makeup effects in the series. I know there's a lot of gay undertones, not even undertones. Honestly, they're kind of right in your face.
I mean, the
doesn't
director
bother me.
admitted it. He came out and said, people said I made a gay Nightmare on Elm Street.
Right.
And he goes, I made a gay Nightmare on Elm Street.
And that doesn't change anything. It's still a good outing in the series, and it's a fun 80s slasher to watch.
Yeah, it's not my favorite in the series, but it's not bad. I would put it.
People argue that it's the last film in the original series. Well, fuck it, we're not going to count the remake. It's the last film in the series where Freddy was scary.
That's fair. I'll give you that. I would say though, like where it fits in my list, I feel like it's like if you want to compare it to Friday the 13th, like New Blood, it's okay. It's good. It's not bad. There's some, well, I wouldn't even say by Nightmare on Elm Street standards, there's some bad ones, but even their bad films are better than most of the other bad movies in the other series. But I mean, 2 is just kind of like that middle ground. I'm some people hate it. I just think it's okay. I don't have a problem with it.
The only problems that I have with the movie are the towel whipping scene in the showers where the coach is getting his towel ass whipped. With the that's just a little too ridiculous. That scene sucks. And the butt bumping when Jesse's putting his clothes away and he's like bumping up his ass up against the dresser drawer to close it. It's just stupid shit like that irks me. It's besides that, I'm fine with the film.
The pool scene's amazing though.
Agreed. And
it's one of the better scenes in the entire series.
Absolutely, that's a standout for sure. Especially with his arms out in the fire in back of him and shit. Yeah. Knowledge Nug. Freddy's Revenge is the only film in the series not to use Charles Bernstein's original theme or even a variation of it.
I did not. I wouldn't. That's a good one. I didn't really think about that.
That's what you don't really pick up on that when you watch it, and then you're like, oh shit, now that I've said that, next time when I found that out, that was the effect it had on me.
Yeah, it's just that 3 is so good that I think it hurts 2 in retrospect, because a lot of times when I watch, I just go 1 and then straight to 3.
Yeah.
It's almost kind of like its own little side story, because I mean, Heather Langenkamp comes back for 3. She's in the first one, but she's not in the second one.
Yeah. And
she's in the beginning.
And 3 and 4 have Kincaid. I love Kincaid, played by Ken Sagos. That character's amazing. I love that dude. Freddy, pussy.
Yeah, he's great. A lot of it was an interesting idea for the third one. I mean, we're not talking about it, but to kind of throw that whole team idea together.
I know, and the fucking Dokken Dream Warrior song, man, that 80s metal song is amazing. That shit is amazing.
Yeah, so getting over the They Live. You and I both love They Live.
What is there not to love about They Live?
Dude, Roddy Piper, you want to talk about a wrestler putting in an all-time performance. You talk about The Rock with all his movies and all the money he's made. But tell me a better acting performance than Roddy Piper in They Live.
I can tell you maybe a more iconic one, which is Thunder Lips, played by Hogan in Rocky 3. Maybe that's more iconic, but it's definitely not a bigger role and it's only a bit part. So yeah, I'm going to agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, for carrying a whole movie, dude, the one-liners that Roddy Piper has in this, I mean, everybody knows kick ass. I'm here to kick ass and chew bubble gum, and I'm all out of bubble gum. But I'm telling you, the line that I love is when he's in the convenience store, he puts on the glasses, he's letting the people know he could see these aliens, and he was like, "You, all right. You real fucking ugly." Like dude, and then he goes on, he said, "It looks like he dipped your face in cheese dip back in 1957. Like, where does that come from?
It works though. That's what's crazy about it. It works.
Well, it's like Carpenter said, him and Roddy Piper said they had talked about about it maybe once over the years, and he asked him where like those lines came from, and Carpenter told him that Roddy gave him a list. He had been writing down ideas for wrestling promos, and Roddy doesn't remember it. I think that's a lot of the drugs he may have ingested. Maybe is why he doesn't remember it. But he gave Carpenter the yellow pad and told him, if you can use anything from this, just go ahead and throw it in the movie. And he said he used a lot of it. I just like the creativeness of that. Like, why specifically cheesed it back in 1957? Like, or was the other one, call the cops? You know what you need? A Brazilian plastic surgeon. Like, where does Roddy Piper come up with this stuff?
But like I said, for some reason it works, and this movie is an absolute essential Carpenter film. Like if you were getting someone into John Carpenter films, or say they only knew like, oh, I only know Halloween, and you had to like I would be like, no, like you need to watch Escape from New York, and you need to watch They Live, and you need to watch Prince of Darkness and Assault on Precinct. Like I would start nailing them with like I'd give them a stack, you know. But They Live is in the top 4 that I would make them watch. It's essential.
See, it's not in my top 3, but I would probably say start with Assault on Precinct 13. I feel like that's a good starting point besides Halloween.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Assault on Precinct 13 is amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I can't disagree. The remake was not good.
Well, what's your 3 favorite Carpenter films, real quick? We'll break away from They Live. Mine are Halloween, number 1, The Thing, number 2, and Escape from New York. I almost forgot. Escape from New York is number 3. What are your 3?
See, like, I agree with your 2, and then the problem is I get to that third one, and I'm like I've said, it's like when you ask me about the Dark Knight trilogy, Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy. Depending on the day, I might give you a different answer. One day it might be Batman Begins, but I'd have to say I really want to say They Live. It always comes down to They Live and Prince of Darkness, but I got to go Prince of Darkness. I love Donald Pleasance. He's great in everything. He overacts, but he's not overacting, if that makes sense. And he does a great job. I mean, he's good in Escape from New York, too, as the president.
I knew you were going to fucking say Prince of Darkness, though. The Antichrist just giving people facials for 90 minutes.
Just green liquid all over their face.
No, man, but that scene at the end, or the nightmare scene, always fucking... You always brought that scene up, and that scene is creepy as shit, man.
Dude, when they...
the posture, like the height, it's lengthy. You know what I mean? Like the Antichrist is all lengthy, and, you know, it has like... Shut up! You know, and lanky. There we go. I said lengthy, and that's why you're laughing.
Is he girthy?
He's all lanky and like robed, and man, it's definitely creepy.
And just like the way he moves, and then like static from like the dream, but it's not it is a dream, but it's being broadcast from the future. Like, dude, that still gives me goosebumps sometimes when I watch that.
Well, anyway, though, back to They Live. So here's the thing. Like, this is something that I've always given John Carpenter credit for, was that, you know, some people say that they prefer Cronenberg's films or other directors' films because, you know, they put a little bit, you know, more thought into them, you know, like Dario Argento or whatever. Whereas, like, that to me is, I like Carpenter's straight sense of filmmaking where it's just get from the story from point A to point B, and that's it. It's always just straight and simple storytelling. And, I have to say, like, there's not a lot of social commentaries on a lot of his films. Think about it, like Halloween.
People tried to say there
Vampires.
were social commentaries in a lot of his films, and he's like, no, it's just a movie.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, it's always, if you wanted to look for it, you could maybe draw something up of your own conclusion. But there was never really any social commentary to any of his movies. He just made a movie. He just told the story that he wanted to tell for a movie and got out of there. There was nothing hidden, and you know, so They Live is absolutely his most politically heavy movie. It's the only one of his movies that I can really think of that really has any sort of social commentary. It's so political, and the crazy thing about it is that the message is even more relevant today than it was back when it came out. Like, obey, consume. I mean, it's like it's crazy. It's 100% true.
And I mean, there is the politics, but you can also watch it without the politics, and it's just, you know, it's just a movie about aliens. So I mean, if you want the political commentary, it's there. If you don't want it, it's still an amazing movie.
Yeah, and actually, here's a strange little piece of information for you. Knowledge Nug. Meg Foster is the only character in this film with a first and last name, Holly Thompson. Everyone else just has one name.
I mean,
She's a complete character, yo.
and she's not a real person.
Yeah, right. And
But
she a
I would
backstabber,
say,
yo. Why did I
Nada,
stop saying yo? It was funny once.
Nada does technically, they list, he's never called it, but he's listed as John Nada.
Yeah,
But,
Nada.
dude, how about him with Keith David? Like, dude, Keith David is good in everything.
I agree. He's good in everything, and him and Piper just
Carpenter used him amazingly.
he did. I like the stories that he told of how, like, in between takes of the fight scene, the epic fight scene, how him and Piper would like go into stores to buy like drinks or snacks or whatever, like with like the gore all over like the back of his head from like when he gets dropped on the concrete. They'd walk in with the makeup effects all rugged and dirty, and they would just like laugh at people's reactions. I mean, he seems like such a cool dude.
Dude, it's best fight scene.
I actually have a cool story actually since you brought him up. I might have I've told you this, I'm sure. He actually at Monster Mania several years ago, probably 3-4 years ago, he actually was on an elevator that my wife and I were on with our son Abel, and Abel had a one of my old Rambo toys from like when I was a kid, and it's like he didn't have the knife or nothing. It was just a basic Rambo toy, and Keith David, is it Keith David or David Keith? Now I'm fucking
David Keith is the white guy.
Okay, there we go.
He was the guy in the Major League movies.
I mean, I always get their names confused.
They
man,
need to
so.
do David Keith and Keith David need to do a movie together.
Well, anyway, yeah. So he actually was like talking to my son and like was like, "Oh, that's a cool Rambo toy you have there." So and like picked up the toy and played with him for a second. So I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, dude, and his voiceover work is good too. Plays the president on Rick and Morty.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, I don't really watch Rick and Morty. I watched the Scary Terry episode because you made me watch it.
Dude,
That was pretty entertaining.
That's a good one. But yeah, he voices the president on the show. He has a line in there. He goes, "I'm the president of the world." Well, America, so it's basically the same thing. But dude, him and Piper are so good together. When he finally gets the glasses on him, and he's asking questions, and he goes, "How long have they been there?" And Piper's like, "Who knows?" And he's like, "Where do they come from?" And then another ridiculous Piper quote, "Well, they ain't from Cleveland."
Yeah, like what? What the hell?
Dude, and that like the whole fight in the news station. How many action films do you have where there's just like an all-out gunfight at a news station?
I know. On top of it too.
Yeah, on top of it,
helicopters
that
involved.
asshole Holly.
Yeah, backstabber, man.
Dude, we got to talk about when Piper gets thrown through the glass and he just goes tumbling and tumbling down.
Yeah, that reminds me of that of Hot Rod, the Andy
Samberg.
Samberg. Yeah, that film. When Andy Samberg is Hot Rod, when he falls down the hill and he's rolling and tumbling for like 4 minutes. That's that's exactly what I almost feel like that was a homage to They Live.
Dude, they went over with that fall like they went over with the fight and They Live. Like it was only supposed to be a couple minutes, but Piper and Keith David convinced Carpenter to let them like really duke it out as long as they agreed not to hit each other in the crotch or hit each other in the face. So like all the body shots were like real.
But it's such a unique fight because it's like you watch them fight, and you just
It's over sunglasses.
That's
dude.
not just that, but it's like that's not how a normal fight would go down. What you're doing is not what normal people do. Normal people aren't doing fucking back body drops on people in the middle of the parking lot.
Dude, that's so good. And that, like, I mean, like, why can't you just put the sunglasses? Like, I gotta ask, like, I mean, why couldn't Frank have just put the sunglasses on for, like,
Because he was
10 seconds.
Because he thought that he was like
I mean,
a
if
criminal.
you think he's
He
crazy,
thought he was a criminal,
just
so
like
he didn't
put
want
the
to get caught up in this
sunglasses
shit.
on and just like appease him for a minute. Otherwise, you had to fight for like 8 minutes.
Just to
Did
still
you ever
put 'em
see when
on.
South Park recreated that?
No,
Yeah, well, I have to show you. But dude,
South Park recreated the fight scene.
yes, where They Live.
Is it like move for move? Like
No.
okay. Because I'm saying if it was Family Guy probably would have done that shit like move for move, just like when Peter Griffin quoted John Candy from Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. That was the full fucking quote. Like, Family Guy does not cut away. They don't care.
Yeah, I never really got big into Family Guy, but they do make very specific references.
The George P. Wilbur reference. Like,
I've always been more of a South Park guy.
I haven't watched South Park in years. I felt that the show just got too political.
I mean, it was always there. They hate everybody.
Yeah, it just was. I don't know. I just felt like it was more like I just stopped laughing.
You have to at least watch. It was like how they do their mini films where it's like over 3 episodes. So it's like an actual film.
Yeah.
They did one. I don't know if you've seen it on Black Friday.
No.
It was when the PS4s and the Xbox Ones were coming out. And it was like Game of Thrones, but South Park, and it's set on Black Friday to try to get the systems. You'll have to watch it.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, so I think we kind of got a little away from They Live, so I think we can wrap that up here.
Yeah, I think we're good on that.
So now we'll get on to Puff Puff Ass, a segment of our show where we answer questions that are sent in by you, the viewer, at Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at High on Horror 420. And through email at highonhorror420@gmail.com.
Yo, man. Puff, puff, pass.
I'll start us off here with a question from a listener named Sasha from Little Elm, Texas. She asks, have you ever hated a movie so much that you actually walked out of a theater? No, I have not. I've come close. Robert Eggers' The Witch was an exhausting watch for me. And I gave up on it rather early, and I was so bored that I almost left after catching myself dozing off. I should have left, but I'm a glutton for punishment. I stuck it out. Not a fan of that movie. Besides that, nothing comes to mind.
Jeez, dude, The Witch is so good. That ending is amazing. Robert Eggers is a fucking visionary.
I like.
No, seriously, I can't wait for his next movie though. I think it's called Vikings.
Yeah.
Dude, that guy, I've said it before, but his devotion to like operating in whatever time period he is, like, just you hear him in The Witch talk so weird, but like that was researched, that was the dialect of that particular one. Like, same thing with The Lighthouse. Like, I feel like The Lighthouse, I've said it before, I'll say it again. It just feels like a lost film or something that somebody found and like restored.
Yeah, I can understand that.
But I'll stop talking about how much I like Robert Eggers. I also have not left a theater, but I wanted to. It was back when I worked at the movie theater and we could watch movies after hours.
Yeah.
Nicole made me see Dark Shadows, the Johnny Depp movie.
Oh, Jesus.
I wanted to leave, and like, even she will admit she apologized to me for how bad that movie was. Which, I mean, I can't just say I've only picked winners. I had to apologize for making her see Green Lantern. Like, yeah, I was like, I'm sorry. Even I didn't like that.
You ordered 5 for that one. That shit's rough.
Yeah, that was bad. But no, I've never actually left. I think it's because I'm like, I paid money to see this. In the case of the other one, I wanted to leave, but Nicole wouldn't let me.
I know, dude, and that's the thing. Like, that always made me different from other dudes. The thing was like, everybody, guys used to like take girls out to movies to like make out with them and to like get to like first, second, and third base and stuff like that and hook up. And it's like, I'm too much of a movie buff. Like, I'm there to watch the movie. Like, I just paid my $10 to watch this damn movie. I didn't pay $10 to kiss you and waste my time. Like, no offense, but if we're at the movies, I'm watching the damn movie, you know? So I feel you on that.
Except the one time you got too high.
Yeah, except the one time.
So answer for both of us is we have not left it, but we both have had times we wanted to. And getting on to the second question here from Mark from Manhattan Beach, California. What makes the best drive-in movie? The easiest, most simple answer for a good drive-in horror movie is a slasher. Like, it just feels like it's meant to be seen at the drive-thru. Especially like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I feel like that's a perfect drive-in movie.
Any movie, as long as it's exploitation or horror, cheesy or scary horror. But I am a sucker for slashers, you know that, and so I'd say old school slashers, good and bad, like The Prey, and Trapped Alive and Pieces and Maniac and Halloween and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and you name it.
The Hammer Dracula films would be good too.
They would be good. That'd be like a good Saturday afternoon movie.
Yes, I don't know about afternoon.
I don't know why I said afternoon. Saturday night movie would be just fine.
Is an afternoon drive-in movie really going to be good? It's going to be daytime.
That's very true.
But yeah, I feel like the technology, or I guess lack thereof of good technology, also helps a good drive-in movie.
Yeah, man, I would love to see The Mutilator in a drive-in. That movie is brutal. And that's just one of those old school. They don't make slashers like they used to. I mean, they try, but Terrifier comes close and Hatchet comes close, but
Terrifier, actually, you know what? Terrifier would look good in a drive-in.
Yeah, it would. Yeah, because of the grit and the grain. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I'm sure it would work out good if there's just another kid's movie playing next to it, and then you just have Terrifier or somebody getting their taint sawed.
Halloween 2018 and Halloween Kills would be cool in a drive-in.
Yeah, those
again
be
slashers though.
I'd like to see a Friday the 13th at a drive-in.
Yeah, that would be awesome. That would be awesome. I want to do a drive-in where you have people rolling up with your fries on roller skates and shit.
Yeah. I mean, we did have a small drive-in kind of open around us, but I don't even know when they're operating and stuff.
I don't know,
It's behind a Lowe's, so it's not really
Jeez, okay, it's behind the Lowe's, okay.
No, it's kind of behind the Lowe's in a field.
Yeah, I don't know though, like I said about the whole roller skate thing, I don't know how people do that. I would never volunteer for that job. I just know.
Dude, I have no balance to even roller skate.
I don't think I've ever put a pair of roller skates on, even before when I maybe had a chance of doing it. I never did it.
I tried it a couple times back when I was in elementary school, and I'm I have no balance. This isn't a good idea.
Let me get out before I break something.
Basically.
All right, well, I guess we're gonna wrap that up before we just ramble on and on and on here about more slashers. Don't get us started. Don't forget to write in your questions to us on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter at highonhorror420 or email us at highonhorror420@gmail.com. Write to us. We love hearing from you. We love getting these messages, and we love, reading them off on the air every week. It's, some of y'all are getting kind of perverted with what you say, so we're not going to read those on the air.
Maybe
maybe if we get desperate, but some of you people out there actually want to know some real stuff. So keep the messages coming in, and thank you for listening. Let's get into our review / discussion of this week's film, Skin Deep now.
Skin Deep is a 2004 film. 2004 film written and directed by Gabriel Bartalos. It stars Les Pollock, Aaron Sims, Kirk Carley, and Dirk Diggler.
Dirk Diggler.
I might have added that last one in.
That's going to be your new thing now. You're just going to add a random cast member in and see if I catch it.
Just see if our audience knows what character I'm referencing. Anyway, Skin Deep focuses around a family vacation that's turned into a nightmare when they're abducted by a family of deranged killers, kind of in the Texas Chainsaw vein. And it's a comedy, sci-fi, horror, thriller, romantic drama. It's got everything.
Man, you and I go way back with this movie, man, and I still enjoy the shit out of it. It's so surreal and out of this world. They just do not make movies like this anymore, and if they do or attempt to, it's piss poor. Skinned Deep works for some reason. There's definitely something special about it that makes it work. I love this movie.
Yeah, and I gotta say, when you first watch it, you have to give it time. It was 20 minutes in, and I was just what the hell am I watching?
Yeah.
And then I was this is weird. Maybe this is too weird. And then I kept watching it, and it just has a charm. Brain is so ridiculous when you first see him.
I know. Dude, my favorite line from the movie is, I thought you were hungry, so I brought you some soup and money.
Yeah.
What?
I want to know where this money came from. And are they just like,
I guess all the victims of the people they kill.
are they too stupid to know like what money's used for? Like, I mean, he put a lot of money on that breakfast tray.
I don't think they need it. I just, the way they live, they don't seem to. I mean, they could use it. They dress and, they definitely could use it. But yeah, I don't think that money has value to them. They just want to kill.
Dude, why can't I think of his name? Surgeon General.
The Surgeon General, yeah.
Yeah, dude, that design is fucking badass.
I know a bear trap for a mouth. I mean, and who doesn't like horror movies about twisted families with practical effects and a main villain like the Surgeon General? I mean, come on.
And you could definitely get the Texas Chainsaw Massacre vibe from it.
Yeah,
I picked that up right away. Like even in the filming of it, like the graininess of it.
Yeah, and there's a little something for everyone, and a little something for everyone to enjoy in Skinned Deep. And it was our guest Gabe Bartalos' first time directing. He previously just did makeup effects, and since then, though, he's made another film called Saint Bernard from 2013 that I saw once, that Vinegar Syndrome put out on Blu-ray, and I intend to grab that soon and rewatch it. I don't remember much of it. Yeah, we'll have to make that a movie night or something at my place.
Yeah, definitely. And I gotta say, who is your favorite character and why is it Plates?
Did you say who is your favorite character and why is it Plates?
Yes.
I mean, yeah, it's Plates. It's definitely Plates. I don't know, something about Warwick Davis. Like he plays the most ridiculous parts, but like he makes it believable. Or like you hear, like we had talked about this dude. We talked about this movie for years. When you see like the Plates just stands out because like you describe that character to somebody, and they're like, what? And then like you see it on screen, and you're like, what? And then you're like, oh, okay. Like I don't know. I don't know if it's Warwick or if it's just the character, or maybe it's a little bit of both. But something about like the strangeness of the characters in this movie like works. Like you either get it or you don't, and we were definitely part of the crowd that got it.
Dude, and he's in a fight with somebody, and he runs out of plates, and he's like grabbing back to his backpack to grab plates. Yep. And then all of a sudden, he just starts digging plates out of the ground to throw at the guy.
I know. I remember the first time we saw Warwick's plates, we were like, what the fuck? And then as the movie went on, like you said, we were like, this shit is batshit crazy, but we loved it. We rewatched it, like we watched that movie, like, I think me and you probably watched that movie at least probably 4 or 5 times.
Yeah, it's definitely a hidden gem from the early I guess more mid 2000.
Yeah.
But it's not talked about enough. And I feel like Warwick Davis with this and his Leprechaun performances, I just feel like he's not talked about enough.
He's such a good character actor, man, and a physical actor too.
I just named those two, and that's not even his biggest role. I mean, it was Wicked and Return of the Jedi.
True. I mean, he was in
or
Willow
maybe
too.
Willow, but
yeah, I'll say Willow was a good one, man. That movie was good.
The biggest movie he was in was Return of the Jedi.
Well, let's talk for a second though about the great job that Severin Films did on the Skinned Deep Blu-ray. They did such a good job cleaning that picture up. It's still full frame instead of widescreen because that's how it was filmed. But man, like that picture quality and sound is on point, and that cover is beautiful, isn't it? That artwork of the Surgeon General.
Yeah, I really like the cover, and yeah, it looks a lot better. But there's something just about that like graininess.
Yeah.
Of the, I believe it was shot on 16 millimeter.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah,
it was a grainy film either way.
Yeah. But yeah, it looks good. The Blu-ray, I mean, you got to throw the Surgeon General on the front. I mean, just from the design of it.
I know that's gonna sell it. Everybody's like loves a cool fucking monster, and if you order the Blu-ray directly from their website, you get the CD soundtrack as an exclusive. I didn't know that, and I ordered mine off of Amazon like a dumbass, so I don't have the soundtrack, unfortunately. But
Bezos got you, dog.
But yeah, so all right. But let's talk about our favorite scenes of the film. My favorite scene, we've talked about this because it's just so like what, but everything about this movie is like what. But at the same time, it's like that's awesome. And for me, my particular favorite scene is when Granny puts the peace signs on all of the people's heads who are coming to like kill them, and everybody's head starts exploding. Like the peace signs start blowing up. It blows one dude's hand off, and then it blows a dude's head off. And it's like if there was one scene in that movie that could sum it up. If someone was like, sum up the movie for me, what's it about? That's the scene that I would show them. Like, just watch this, and if you like this, watch the rest of it.
And she also, before that, has the ridiculous, they just need a little peace of mind.
Yeah, right. And the way that it's played, it's just so like, she's just so like sweet, but at the same time, it's definitely has an undertone of like you're evil.
Two big questions from that scene for me. One, I'm not letting them just. Well, I guess I'm asking more. Why would you let somebody come up and just put this on your head? I'd be like, get the hell away from me.
Yeah, right.
And two, like,
especially when you're there to like kill them, like
Yeah.
you're there to like. Yeah, you're there to wreak havoc and get revenge, and then you're just gonna let like the matriarch come out and just put these little peace signs on your head, like and just that's it. You don't care.
And how dumb is the third guy for not taking it off his head?
I mean, I don't know, but the effects are awesome though.
Like, I could get the second guy being like, "Oh, that's just one," but as soon as that second one went off, I'm trying to rip that peace sign off my head pretty quick.
Yeah, I know. I'm surprised they all didn't blow. I remember the first time we saw it, I thought everything was gonna blow up at once.
I would say my favorite scene is where the dude gets killed with the sand in the mouth. And then,
Oh,
and
yeah.
then Warwick with that top down scene is just dancing around.
That top
Just
down
go,
scene.
"Woo!" And let's talk about the credits. There's no credits music.
Yeah, that's right.
I gotta be honest, that is the thing that made me laugh the most. Is just her screaming continuously. There's no music. It's just a scream. Then some time goes past. It's another one.
Yeah, it's just that's definitely a unique end credit sequence, and yeah, it definitely stands out for that reason. But yeah, I mean, is there anything else that we want to talk about before we?
No, this movie is very hard to describe. You just have to see it.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
And I feel like it's one of those movies. Either you're gonna love it or you're gonna hate it.
yeah,
There's
it's
really no in between on it.
agreed. Yeah,
You either get what it's going for, and you enjoy it. I mean, you might get what it's going for and you don't enjoy it, but I think a lot of people just don't get the humor in it.
well, that Severin Blu-ray is selling for a reason. There's people that don't remember it, people who haven't seen it, people who have seen it, and people who just think the Surgeon General looks cool on the cover and want to check it out. Either way, the word is spreading in the movies. You know, the name is circulating again, and that's a great thing. It's good when we have a movie that we watch together and bonded over and with to watch it kind of have another life. And
And I mean the effects. I mean, they're going to be good with Gabe involved.
he's such a legend. And yeah, I really I can't really say enough about Skin Deep. Of course, if you wanted to look at the movie a certain way, you could say like, oh, this movie's terrible. But it's like, again, it's you either get it or you don't. The movie's definitely not terrible. It's just it's an acquired taste. That's how I would put it. It's an acquired taste. And I definitely think this movie's awesome. And I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10.
Yeah, again, our rating's based on, it's not necessarily always the overall rating, but based on, I feel like, what they were going for. And I would give it probably a 7.
Okay.
Or I'm sorry, I give it like a 7.3.
All technical about it again. Hey, either way, yeah, and the one thing about this movie though is that it is completely rewatchable. It has such rewatchability. Yeah. If you're listening to this, definitely go grab yourself a copy of that Severin Films Blu-ray and check it out. If you have seen the film, you should still grab the Blu-ray and check it out.
Yeah, one last thing, before we wrap this up and get into Burn and Learn. The creator, like, dude, that shit was ridiculous. He kept doing them Hulk Hogan poses, but he has no head.
Buff-ass wrestler with no head, and he's missing a big toe.
Yeah, he is missing a big toe.
Anyway, yeah, so he basically created the Surgeon General and Brain and plates. What about what he says when Brain says I wish he created everyone. I wish he created me as much as everyone else.
Dude, Brain's, dude, that effect is ridiculous. The giant, like he
That
literally
giant
is a
heart head, yeah.
Dude, that had to be heavy on his neck.
I would imagine, definitely. And it's so funny because he's just so redneck. He's like so redneck of a character.
And I kind of like that we have this creator that we know he creates these people, but we don't really know how he's necessarily creating everybody. I mean, you have the people are feeding off the house, but like his process, we really don't know what his whole process is.
No, we don't. We don't know what his and we know very, very little about him. But again, with all of these like things, all of these loose ends, you could see how like this was a fun movie to find when we were getting baked all the time. I mean, like because you're just like one thing after another. I was just like, holy shit, this is crazy. And then you get introduced to the creator, and you're like you said, he's just this buff dude, just like doing these Hulk Hogan poses and shit. And you're just like, okay, like this is amazing. Like I don't know why, but it works.
But it's everything's created in his image.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, so I think with that we can wrap up here and move on to Burn and Learn, the segment of our show where Drew and I fill you in on some behind the scenes facts of the movie we're talking about. And in this case, Skin Deep.
Ooh. Burn and learn.
Funny thing, they didn't have any permits in this film except for the end with the explosions. The scene where Brain runs naked in Manhattan was done during rush hour in Times Square. Add to that, actor Jay Dugra, I hope I'm saying that right, Dugra, got arrested while filming that scene. He got snagged by some undercover cops.
The opening scene of the skin getting branded is real. Gabe Bartalos ran an ad saying human canvas wanted on a fetish website. A sacrificial expert burned the letters S and D into a willing participant's thigh.
Actor Warwick Davis and director Gabe Bartalos first met while working together on the feature film Leprechaun.
The exploding house at the end of the film was captured by an effects company, Real Effects multi-camera rig that supported 62 cameras for that shot.
The main villain, the Surgeon General, was designed to look subliminally like a skull.
The end credits scream by actress Caroline Brandt was done in one uncut long take.
Those were given to us by Gabe. Thank you, Gabe, for those. There's not a lot of information, a lot of facts floating around the internet about Skinned Deep, and he was kind enough to provide us with those for this episode. So let's get into talking to the man himself, our guest, Gabriel Bartalos. Our guest today is our very first makeup effects guest. He's worked on the Leprechaun series, Basket Case, Underworld, Friday the 13th Part 6 Jason Lives, Dolls, From Beyond, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, and most recently, he did work on Army of the Dead on Netflix. Look, if you watch horror movies, you've seen his work, put it that way. And back in 2004, he directed the movie that we're here to talk about today, Skinned Deep. Welcome, Gabriel Bartalos. Thank you for being on High on Horror.
Thanks for having me.
Did I get your last name right?
Bartalos? Yep, that sounded fine.
Okay, great. Okay, so first off, I just want to ask you, or tell you rather, that we're big fans of your work. You know, like I said, you've done work in like so many movies that we love. It's crazy. And so I have to ask, you know, as being a part of so many good movies over your career, what's the favorite creation that you've made?
Well, I like the idea that within each body of work, each new year, some new favorites come out. And that tends to be kind of consistent in that, like, my last feature film that I made, St. Bernard, had some of my most outlandish, I think imaginative makeup effects characters, creatures. So it's almost like now with some longevity, I could probably take favorites over 10-year sections, you know?
Right.
But I think more important is almost that you said, if you, the viewer, find characters that you like, I think that's great because we all have our own preference, including me that I watch films. So we all have our own reason for finding favorites.
Absolutely. And I wanted to ask you, Spookies. You did makeup effects in Spookies, and I actually grew up watching Spookies, and I'm a fan despite its flaws. And we spoke with producer Frank Farrell earlier this year, and as a matter of fact, and how did you feel about Spookies and the resurgence of it as of late due to the Vinegar Syndrome release? Do you feel like Frank, is it bittersweet?
Yeah, probably. I mean, because it's got to be such a difficult thing if you're the filmmaker of a film like that, like the directors or Frank, the producer, because in a sense it's being celebrated for, I think it's problematic history, but there's still people maybe like yourselves that still find the charms in it. So maybe a resurrection isn't bad, and for all the wrong reasons. I think it is fascinating. It's a good cautionary lesson that things like this can happen in the film business. And, people like Frank, like the directors of the film, they all have stories that still like to tell. So the film, if a viewing audience understands that there are these pitfalls that can become, especially independent filmmakers, and see past that, and they groove on the aspects that they know the filmmakers were responsible for, the positive stuff, maybe it'll lead to more work for them and a better recognition of why the film seems like it is. So actually, I think it's a great thing.
Yeah, we both love Spookies. It's entertaining in its own kind of way, and and you can just see the problems with it, but there's still like the great effects that were done with like the spider and really a lot of the creatures before it got taken from Frank and them. But you did play a Muckman in Spookies, right?
Yeah, I mean, for me, luckily, a lot of my work got through unscathed. I built a Muckman. I got to play a Muckman, which was great fun. I got to flip the table, and I got to do all the smashing, which is excellent. Nice. I built the mummy that starts the film with the Ouija board. For me, it was great fun. It was, I was so young, even proportionately to the crew, that it was so sad for me to watch these people who became good friends to have their film taken away, because, if there hadn't been a negative intervention, the film probably wouldn't have been a stellar standout, but it might have been above average. And that would have at least been a nice calling card for them to honestly proceed in their career any way they wanted. Something that they didn't have to explain every time. I think that's the drag of it. Imagine if some key point in your life always had a fucking asterisk next to it. That would be a nightmare, So that I really sympathize in that aspect for them. But it's totally entertaining as it is. And like you said, the effects, the sheer volume are fun to watch. And they're really a product of their time in a good and bad way, in a charming way. So it's another weird thing to happily be involved in for me.
And yeah, I have to agree. If it didn't have the story behind it that it did with everything in the background, it probably would have become this forgotten movie. But the story really adds to it. And you did a documentary. You were the cinematographer for the Twisted Tales, the Unmaking of Spookies. And
I didn't shoot it, but I happily participated in it. I think it was Vinegar Syndrome put that together. With Michael Gingold, and that team did a great job. But I was happy to participate and lend my point of view to it.
Yeah, another one of those false IMDb ones. But thank you for clearing that up. But
just send the checks to me, care of Gabe, and we'll be fine.
Okay, Vinegar Syndromes, you got to pay the man.
Yeah.
How much fun did you have doing the documentary and like reliving some of those stories? I'm sure not all of them were great.
Yeah. I think I probably had a better time than most because I was what's categorized in the film industry as below the line. Above the line are the executives, the writer, director, producer, and they have to do the day-to-day managing with the financiers or whoever is pulling the strings. That, unfortunately, is the flip side of the creativity and is part of the film business. For me, I was working in the basement of the house, cut loose with a very large to-do list in a very short amount of time. They saw I had the enthusiasm and the energy, so they left me alone. And the last thing I would want to care about is shooting politics. I had muckmen to build, so I was off on my own, and really all the problematic stuff happened in post-production. So luckily I was able to dodge a lot of the bullets and just started hearing about it through my communications with the filmmakers. Things went south,
Yeah, and I asked Frank this question, and I'll ask you as well. The part that the other crew added in with the kid's birthday party, is that about the saddest looking birthday party in like cinema history? Like the half inflated balloons. It's really sad for that kid on his birthday.
Yeah. Well, that's what the youth of today get.
Yeah, well, it's one of the things is that Spookies is sacred to me, and it's funny because I'm watching people pick it apart and laugh at it, and it's actually sacred to me. I told Frank this story, and Frank and I have been kind of pen pals online for a couple of years now, and I'm not going to go too deep into it, but long story short, I grew up in a broken home, and a friend came over of my family's who had the VHS, and I watched it, and that movie became my escape. And I was too young to understand the incohesiveness of it. I just saw monsters, and I was like, and that was my escape for the longest time. So to me, now that I'm, watching it all these years later, and I'm seeing all the flaws with it, I'm still like, no, like I'm defending it because I'm like, this movie like got me through some hard times, and it's still charming and endearing. Like you said, I think the fact that it's dated actually helps the fact in like not being too harsh on it. It's like it is a little dated, but that actually at this point in time doesn't hurt it. It makes it a little bit more endearing. And yeah, so like I've always held Spookies in my heart, like in a sacred place. So I'm one of those people out there championing it. So you're not going to hear any shit talk on the film from me.
Yeah, well, I think that's great. I think we should all own the films that are really special to us because they are, to me, like they're the time capsules. They're the timestamps of different era, and our tastes change. And as we become adult or more so grown up, of course, our taste and our radars are going to change as to what's coming in. But what I think's beautiful about films and music is let everyone else make the apologies. If it's special to you, you hang on to it. And later on, if you do understand or see it through a different prism, that's okay too, but it doesn't mean it'll change your brain's chemistry of what it does to you. And I think we all have examples that in music, in films, and photos we look at, I think it's great.
Absolutely. So this brings me to my next question, actually. So you've been working on makeup and been in the industry for like over 30 years now. So I have to ask you, how do you feel that technology has changed things, and is it for the better or worse?
Probably a two-sided coin, and I bet if someone put a microphone in front of you or posed the question to you, you'd probably give a really similar answer, is that on the exciting front, watching the technology change and watching the good aspect of watching landscapes and maybe architectural changes through digital and camera moves are exciting because you just couldn't do that before. But at the same time, and I don't know if the checks and balances are there now, because there seems to be definite disapproval from people that are watching it become not tactile enough and too digital, is that film making and film does capture a moment tangibly. And if that is no longer handleable, if it's completely just nines and ones digitally, you're losing an essence of the storytelling. And really, it may be diluting the cinema experience. So I think it depends maybe where you are with your film going, where you are with age. And some people probably aren't as passionate about films as you and I, where they could take it or leave it. It's just something to help them unwind at the end of the day, where to us, we do take it seriously. And we try and figure out why films are impactful to us and maybe why newer ones aren't cutting it and older ones are. And it's not always about the money or storytelling equation. You start to question: is it the format? Is it the nature of the camera moves? Is it the emulsion? You know, all these things come into play. So I think probably like most, I could see the pluses and the minus, and depending on the film and what kind of mood I'm in, I'll back either side.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, a lot of people have their own preference. I know a lot of people like the CGI, and I'm saying, no, I'd rather have Jason and the Argonauts stop animation. They're like, that looks terrible. And I'm like, well, your CGI stuff looks terrible to me. But I mean,
Yeah.
there definitely is a need for it for like a movie like a Godzilla movie. So the CGI works sometimes in that because you can't always do everything. But I think that maybe they might rely on it maybe a little too much with the CGI now. It just it's an easier way for him to get the effect done.
Yeah, totally. You know, it's probably a good analogy is like if you're painting a house and you do this huge labor of taping off the windows and taping off the trim, and you flag the lawn, and you have to put a bag over a tree because you know you're going to get a spray gun out, and you're really just going to spray one wall. You do all this prep and financial and time investment. You spray this wall, and there are 3 other walls that you were going to paint by hand, but you don't. It's almost like, well, now I'm going to use the spray gun. You overuse the tool when your best plans, even from the wisest people, shouldn't have and wouldn't have, but you end up doing it because you're already kind of there. Let's just go for it. And it actually brings the entire job down a hair.
That is a really good analogy, and I think that's the best way to put it. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to get into a movie that is near and dear to me, Friday the 13th, Part 6, Jason Lives. Mm-hmm. I know you were involved as a makeup assistant, is that correct?
Yeah, I worked through a company called Real Effects. Real Effects was on... they were kind of going through a phase where they're physical effects. They do excellent explosions, rain, pyro. And there was a period, I think, industry-wise, where there was an idea about maybe physical effects would fuse with makeup effects. A few companies were trying it. And I had a good relationship with Real Effects. And they said, why don't you come in and help on the makeup effects aspect? And I think the company that brought them Friday 13th Part 6 even offered it to them, said, why don't you just bundle it? It says effects, just make them the same. What played out about a few years later is all the companies that tried that, even with the best intentions, realized, well, they're so specialized. You really want different facilities, and it's different type of people and craftsmen doing it. So, but in this time, Real Effects was exploring it, and they did well with it. They had gotten 2 jobs back to back that I was involved in, that and a film called The Lamp. It came out as The Outing. And it was really fun because we were watching the physical effects aspects being prepped at the same time we were doing the makeup effects. And Tom McLaughlin was the director on Friday 6. And I thought he added a really nice cinematic scope to the film that I don't know, I would say was missing, but it was really welcome that he introduced it. I mean, the shots were like, you know, he was forgetting it was a horror movie. It was like Gone with the Wind's angles, and like, you know, it was really dramatic. And I thought that was really cool. And to me, it even amplified the nobility of Jason and made the horror really dramatic.
Yeah, it had a very gothic feel to it.
Gothic, yeah, it's good.
Now, what exactly did you do on Jason Lives?
Well, probably the most standout thing, because when you're working with a team, everybody, if they can, does a lot of stuff, which is kind of fun because you get your fingers into everything. But at the same time, that's a little tricky because you can't really claim anything as your own. So probably the most paramount thing was making the vacuform masks for Jason. That was cool to be hands-on with that. That was made where once we knew the hockey mask we were making, the size, we made what's called a buck. It's a big, sturdy cement form that heavy-duty, like vacuform plastic is drawn over it. and you could assembly line them, bash them out. I think we made 13 appropriately enough, knowing that there would be a hero, a backup, a stand-in, a stuntman, photo shoot one for an advertising, a couple in case one got ripped off, which by then they were getting stolen because the series was so popular. They have registration holes, so you know where to drill and Dremel out all the openings. They're painted, they're weathered appropriately, especially if there's an arc through the narrative of the storytelling of them getting beat up and bruised. And then the strapping goes on. On set is where you do the final fitting with the talent to make sure it fits. Underneath him, he had like a hood, a prosthetic. Hey, baby, come here. You want to say hi? My daughter, Nova.
Hello.
That it gets fitted on the talent. So it was fun to be involved in that. I was always a fan of Friday the 13th. Friday the 13th Part 1, Savini's effects just blew my mind. So I was really psyched to suddenly be a part of it in any way.
Yeah, and I mean, you got to work on Jason's mask. It's a pretty big part of the movie.
Yeah, totally.
And I was going to ask if you were always a Jason fan. Now, have you seen all of them, or did any of them make you kind of drop off?
I am a Jason fan. Where did I train? That's a great question. I think
I feel like for me, it was kind of after Jason Takes Manhattan. That was, and then kind of like
was
Jason
that part
goes
8?
Yeah, that was part 8.
That was the last one for me. Yeah, but what is that?
I drew
Is that a monster?
Awesome.
It's what's the name again?
Is it a character?
No, it's
Oh, Friday the 13th?
no, yeah, that's right.
Jason.
Jason.
Oh, you hear them. My daughter drew Jason.
And that is Surgeon General.
Oh, Surgeon General.
Oh, Surgeon
Oh,
General.
the Surgeon General.
All right,
Awesome.
all right. I'm well supported in this family and my endeavors. Thank you, sweetie.
And yeah, I would say that Jason Takes Manhattan's where I kind of dropped off. Like Jason
Yeah.
Goes to Hell, Jason X, they just kind of didn't have the same feel as those like first 8 for me.
Yeah, I think I'm the same.
Now, have you seen the remake they did in 2009?
No, I didn't see it. I mean, am I missing something good?
I think compared to some of the other remakes, Drew and I both kind of like it. I feel like with like the Halloween remakes and the Nightmare on Elm Street remakes there's kind of a story there. Jason was just kind of, you can make your own background story about Jason you want, really.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought it was pretty well done, and they kind of crammed, I'd say, 1 through 4 all into a movie.
Being efficient.
Yeah, I mean, you don't need the whole Pamela story. That's just the first one.
Yeah.
Now, have you always been a lifelong horror fan?
I have. I think they're really what, I got into filmmaking through stop motion animation. And you guys okay if I'm joined by a guest host here?
Sure.
Yeah, stop motion animation films. You said Jason and the Argonauts. I mean, fantastic. I think also then the giant Japanese monster movies really caught my attention between Godzilla and stuff. And let me keep going. And then really just watching the evolution of, I think I started to realize I liked the fantasy aspects of the film. So when Planet of the Apes came, and then it zeroed into horror, and William Friedkin's film, The Exorcist, kind of put really frightening, disturbing filmmaking, really good filmmaking matched with horror was like, wow, a real crescendo there.
A-list.
Yeah, and it kind of put it all together. And I've always liked when big budgets tackled horror films. One is it pulled it up out of the B level, which I always knew it deserved more, but seemed to only afford the financing of lower budget. So I was thrilled that The Exorcist was a good example. Shortly after The Omen, then maybe in another generation, Jacob's Ladder, films that were made with quality filmmakers that through their budget, it really disturbing you was just fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. Now let's talk about Skin Deep.
Mhm.
John and I watched it several times back in high school. I rented it at Blockbuster at least 3 times that I can remember. The fact that it was so surreal and batshit crazy really clicked with us, especially while we were, getting baked. And watching the movie again, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and The Hills Have Eyes influence is apparent. Are there any other movies that Skin Deep was influenced by?
Well, I mean, you're accurate with the chainsaw aspect only because I really love those films. And to tell you the truth, I almost feel like I didn't know if I were to construct a film that went as non-narrative as I would really like to be, if that would be a wise move or if that kind of film could even be approachable for a sale. Because after you make a film you're really passionate about, and if you're making a film you want to see, you want to be slightly mercenary and make sure someone else sees it. It's not a home movie. Right. So I thought, I really like the structure of Chainsaw, of young lady person trapped in Hell House and the atrocities that ensue. So I hung it upon that.
I drew.
And
I drew Halloween Killer, the mask. I just remembered something.
So, I think the other aspects of it, I guess, I'm sure there would be a lot of reference points of films that influenced me because a lot of times I would communicate to the crew.
I drew.
One more, Susie.
Halloween
Killer.
Mm-hmm.
Can I show it to them?
Yeah.
Okay. My daughter Nova drew the Halloween Killer, the Friday the 13th mask.
Mask of Satan and two.
Oh, right. She just saw Black Sunday, the Mask of Satan.
Okay.
Surgeon General. What's this down here?
Which one?
This one? Yeah.
That one is the afraid version of the Phantom of the Opera mask.
The afraid version of the Phantom of the Opera?
Yeah, there's like a mad one and a set afraid one of the mask.
Right.
Wow, she's creative.
Maybe. Yeah, I'll do more podcasts to get these great original art. This is fantastic, Boo Boo. Thank you. Very generous of you.
I'm going to take it up on
my. All right. A lot of times when I would communicate with the crew, I would say, hey, this lensing, this frame, this is going to be like Repulsion. Hey, we're going to set this up. This is maybe we're taking this from Psychomania. And you obviously, the idea isn't that you're ripping off stuff, but the essence of it, what inspires you, you run it through your own filter and it comes out as. But if you're surrounded by others who have the same shorthand as you of film knowledge, it's a great way to communicate. People are like, oh, I know what you're thinking. I know what you're trying for. So really the answer is that after I knew the structure of what I was doing, the idea then was to go out of my way to try and make something original. Like there may be a familiar setting, but then try and make something that someone will remember of all these characters you haven't seen before, some narratives that haven't seen before, excursions that keep going off and off and off into a surrealistic storyline that you haven't seen before.
Absolutely, it has to be its own beast, even though there may be references or things that it was inspired by. It has to be its own beast. So I totally understand you, and I like films like Videodrome and Pan's Labyrinth because they're true reflections of their directors. To me, Videodrome is the most Cronenbergian film, and Pan's Labyrinth is the most Guillermo del Toro film. And I feel that way about Skinned Deep. I feel like that was just you unleashed doing whatever the hell you wanted.
Yeah, what's interesting, a few years ago, people who know me well said, all those primary characters, they said, are complete metaphors of different sides of you, which I thought were interesting. So you may be onto something there.
Well, yeah, I gotta say, Matthew gets cut in half. A child gets cut in half. You really went for it.
Yeah, yeah.
As Joe Bob said, that's one of the last taboos.
Well, was Skinned Deep something that you wanted to do for a long time?
I think it's almost like looping back from making films when I was a little kid to then lucky enough to have a career in film. It's always in the back of my mind of making films. And as I got comfortable creating characters, I think that the idea of designing a character grew past, let's say, if I'm sculpting just the face, then maybe the whole body, then what are they wearing? Then what's the location they're in? And then what's the narrative that got them in that location? And then before you know it, your imagination is creating a narrative structure. And then I thought, well, I'll discipline myself and actually put this into a script. And it was a great time. I started it in 1998, to start saying, yeah, I'll shoot this as a feature. A couple of years before it, I shot an 8-minute kind of just a personal short film in 16 millimeter to just see what the film stocks were like, to see how things looked in the contemporary time. And that kind of wet my whistle to, oh boy, this could be fun. And the idea of feature films is so exciting. It's a massive palette for storytelling. You have a lot of ideas and creativity like I have. It's a great place just to start jamming all these theatrics into it.
And Warwick Davis got on board because he knew you from doing the makeup in the Leprechaun movies, correct?
Yeah, we had a friendship from doing Leprechaun 1 and then its subsequent sequels, and we became fast friends and would spend time socially if he was in the States in between the years of the projects. And he was always very encouraging, even before I got serious about shooting, where I would riff and we'd make fun of stuff and just laugh. And he would be like, man, you should make a film. So I kind of held him to it when I got around to it. He was more than happy to be involved.
I mean, I really wish that he still did horror, man. He was really down for anything back in the day, playing a character like Plates. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah. I don't know if you guys saw St. Bernard, but he's in that as well, playing a pretty whacked out character. Yeah,
he definitely. I don't know. You get you bring the crazy out of him in your movies. I don't know what it is, but it's pretty great.
I know it's in there. Yeah.
Well, okay. So you did a lot of work with Frank Henenlotter, and we love Frank Henenlotter. Frankenhooker is one of my favorite movies. I love that movie to death. And I have to ask, was Brain in Skinned Deep? He's the only thing in Skinned Deep that looks like it's right out of a Henenlotter movie. Like everything else looks like it's your own effects. It's original, but the brain on him, it just says Henenlotter to me. So I have to ask, like, was that intentional? Was that like your homage to having worked with him?
No, and it's one of those things I wonder about when I look back. Like, so did my involvement with Frank Henenlotter, well, it had to have rubbed off, of course. You know,
right.
Frank is such a strong character and the films are so good. Though I'm making them for him, it's Frank has these ideas that he needs realized. So I would be like, is it coming partially from him? I'm sure it is. Or is it that we were just such a good fit? There was a percentage of it already in me. But I think it's both, because I look at, in all the films or videos or anything I've done that's been under my creative control, I see bits of all the filmmakers I worked with. People like Matthew Barney in the art world. He has a real specific aesthetic and a way of shooting stuff that I'm totally groove on. But when I'm doing my own, I wouldn't do it like that or exactly like that or partially like that. But fragments totally get through. Working with Stuart Gordon, same thing. He's got this specific vocabulary. Frank Henenlotter. So I think these bits get in there. It's almost like my brain's got like a tuna net and it's scooping what I see as the best of or the most appropriate for my form of storytelling. And then it goes through my filters and comes out. And then I'm sure because it's the same hand that sculpted, let's say, the top of Elmer's head that looks like a mosaic, a brain, and then I'm sculpting a giant brain character, there's going to be those identifiable similarities. So it's probably a wash of all that, right? Something like that.
Yeah, that makes complete sense, actually. So it's kind of like your brain kind of Frankenstein pieces of things you've worked on with other
Totally.
people, and now it's like, yeah, that's pretty cool. All right, so I have two questions next that I want to ask you that are just general questions about the film, like things that are a little ambiguous that maybe you can clear up for me. The scene where Granny, played by Liz Little, is using the house to suck like nutrients from the victim into herself, was that to say that like that's like she's so old that like she's using bodies to stay like alive, or was that to say that she was part of one of the creator's creations?
I saw it that what you said first, that whether it was age defying or not, that this tribe of mutations probably were sustaining some kind of life source off their victims, that besides the recreation they thoroughly enjoyed from it, they were also harvesting them.
Okay. And the ending of the film, the sheriff and secretary, how, like the photos fall out of the file and it's all like, murders and stuff. So is the sheriff and the secretary, are they just like they're just in on the whole thing, that they're cool with the murders going down because they're murderers too, or are they creations of the creator?
I think that they're in on it all. Like that shot of the warehouse full of file cabinets suggesting that there's a lifetime of murders going on, that whether I don't know if I really defined in my imagination how much they're cooperating, but they're definitely in on it. And they may not be there luring them in, but they're going to make sure victims don't get out. They're facilitating it, definitely.
Okay, that actually makes sense, because the sheriff is at the beginning of the film when our protagonists show up and they see the collision or the accident on the side of the road, and the sheriff kind of brushes them off, and you're thinking like he doesn't want them to see what's going on, and then you're kind of like, no, wait, he knew what was going on. He was just like, move along here, like he was kind of covering it up.
Yeah, there's a little bit of ping ponging. The first one is exactly that. His one word answers, and obviously not addressing the crime scene, lets you know something's afoul. But the second time is meant to be a tease where Tina is trapped in the room and he comes by supposedly investigating noises that he got a call about. And then, like as a tease, he exits before she gets his attention. Then you think, oh, maybe he is neutral and she just had a missed opportunity. That's the idea, to pull the balance back. So at the end, you realize, no, it was what you thought. He's definitely corrupt.
Okay, gotcha. And so before I send you over to John to finish up, I just wanted to ask, 17 years later, what does Skinned Deep mean to you?
Well, it's nice to see that it got that great facelift. You got the new Severin version?
Yes. Yep.
Blu-ray? It looks great, doesn't it?
Yeah, the cover is beautiful too.
Yeah, they did a good job top to bottom. They rescanned the negative. It was shot in film, so there was all the information was there. It's kind of amazing how if you do shoot in film, as the years go on and technology keeps evolving, they can make things that initially that looked modest look terrific. So with that and tightening up the audio, it felt really good to re-release the film. I think Severin's a great label. A lot of the films they have there, I proudly have collected over the years.
Same.
Yeah, looking back, I think it's just really great to, I guess, be acknowledged by you and people like you, that the films I make, I have a very good understanding that they're not for everybody, and I've kind of made that line in the sand, and I understand that, and I'm really okay with making pictures that are dense with imagery, dense with narrative, and sometimes maybe a little hard to intellectually navigate, but I really want them to be worth the time of the viewer. That if you don't understand everything at first blush, that's not always bad. I mean, there's a great saying that we think upon more what we don't understand. And that's a lot better, to consider something and not just for abstractness sake, but to really think about it if it's not done just as a gimmick, you know? And
Right.
I like the idea of putting out absurdist, sometimes hardcore entertainment, but it does have different layers. And depending on where a person is in their receiving the entertainment, whether in the mood to kick back and make it a party night or consider the social statements, I dare say, are intellectualized, it's all there. You just pull whatever you want from it. For me, it's the perfect outlet. I get to clear my head out. So I think it's great that it's being acknowledged. And that's why I really appreciate you guys reaching out. It's fun to talk about it, and it lets me know that it's landing in some of the right spots.
We love it.
Yeah, and I gotta say, I do still love film on actual film. I used to work at a movie theater, and we still actually had the old film reels. I was a projectionist, so like I said, I now have a skill that's pretty much obsolete now. But I don't know, it's just something about the film and the graininess. I like it better than looking a lot of times at a pristine 4K like picture.
Yeah, I think. I think there'll be differing opinions out there, but for me, and I've thought about why I like that more. And I think it's, as I touched upon earlier, there is something about, maybe it feels like it's really capturing reality more, where we're understanding that a digital world is a synthetic world. So that by that statement alone, you're told it's artificial. But, maybe Whole Foods should run with this logo. If it's film, it's organic, it's going to be better for you.
And I think maybe I don't think that maybe newer movie viewers would have that opinion. I also think it might go back to sentimental reasons. Like for me, I love to watch Halloween on VHS. It's what I grew up watching. I prefer it for purely sentimental reasons.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know what's interesting about that? You guys know the film El Topo?
No.
Yeah.
Well, Drew does.
So what's interesting about that is for many, many years, I grew up with that film with a crap VHS and really enjoyed the rough and ready of the film, and it amplified the storytelling. And it's been updated many times to DVD and in Blu-ray. And it's funny, the more pristine it gets, it rings a little less to me that there's something about it was made in the 70s, it was very low budget. And there's something about the rough and ready of the VHS that speaks to me more. And I'm not exactly sure of that whole equation, because there are other films that I love seeing on Blu-ray, like any Kubrick film. Bring it on.
Yeah.
The better the quality, the better quality. It actually just shows off how he was way ahead of us the whole time. It's like the technology is finally catching up to his storytelling and his film talent. But there's probably certain raw films like Halloween maybe that, and again, that's probably the time capsule thing. They exist probably better in our memory, coupled up in the format we fell in love with it when we were impressionable.
Yeah, I think you're definitely on to something there. And getting back to Skin Deep, I gotta ask, after the kill with the sand in the mouth, it's my favorite plate scene where he's just making noises and just dancing around everybody. Was that from you, or was that something that Warwick improvised?
It was both, in the sense that I always knew that the Warwick's character plates, when I first told him about it, I was trying to stress how amped I wanted him to be, that he was always functioning at a 10 level and stifling his violent tendencies. And that when he did cut loose, it was a party. I mean, this was like him as happy as could be. So when we shot, we went up on a van and put a ladder on top of a van, and the DP, Peter Streetman, was at the top of the ladder with a really wide angle lens. And the idea was that we framed it so that Warwick could run around. And the idea was that he just goes around a little bit. And I was like, do a victory dance. I think that's even what it was called that day on the shooting. And he just kept going and going and dancing and swinging. And I was laughing. And Warwick has energy for days. He did, I don't know how many laps. And it was just so funny because then he would like gesture with the plate, kind of like, fuck you, and throw it up in the air. And that's where, if you're lucky enough to have someone like him on set, he expands the character. I knew cinematically it would almost look like a clock and he's going around it. He added all that energy to boot that made it even funnier.
It's funny because if you explain plates to somebody without seeing the movie, it sounds like the dumbest, most ridiculous character. But like Warwick, he's easily my favorite character in the movie Plates. He's just so entertaining anytime he's on screen.
Well, you probably tapped into a lot of the tricky thing that if I have to describe a scene or early on, I would try and sell a script to a studio before I was going to do it independently. They would just stare at me like, what are you talking about? And I'll tell you, with Skin Deep, I learned a very good example. I was talking to a company about potentially getting financing. And the guy said at the end, he said, you're talking about a dwarf throwing plates, a villain with a bear trap and rooms covered in newspaper? Like, pass. And then when the film came out, there were a handful of really strong positive reviews. And one of them, word for word, said why this film is so interesting and should be seen is it has Warwick Davis throws plates, a killer with a bear trap, and rooms psychedelically covered in newspaper. And I realized, right, okay, if you're having trouble describing something, it's because it hasn't been seen, but that is the reason to go do it. So if you're lucky enough to have the time and the chops to realize it the way you want, you got a fighting chance that you're onto something.
Yeah, it definitely paid off. And speaking of Warwick, I love the Leprechaun series. I gotta say, the first one, I was real young when I saw it, and it terrified the hell out of me the first time I saw it. Now I look back and I'm like, why was I scared of this? But do you have a favorite Leprechaun in the series?
I think the first one is special because it's that weird, I think that weird uneasy line comes through. There was part of it that was done without any winks as a straight horror film. Then it got a little consciousness and they added some scenes, and I think it's confusing to this date, like how serious is the horror, but a lot of it is shot completely serious. And there was more money behind that. So cinematically, again, it's like a real film, but it has this absurdity the entire thing is hung on. And I think part of it, that balancing act, is that I'll give Warwick a lot of credit that he never winked at the lens once. And as the sequels went, I'll dare say that I didn't either. The films, through all the ones we were involved in, they fluctuated in tone, but we decided, or I'll speak for myself, but I think he did too, that I will never be above this. I will do my job completely seriously, and I'll let the filmmakers figure out the tone of it. So maybe because of Warwick and I not winking, taking it seriously, at least somewhere in the DNA is a genuinity. And then it's up, even if the filmmakers go camp, there's still something about it that's trying to stay pure. I think part one, it's tipped so much to being straight ahead horror that it becomes a little uncomfortable. Am I supposed to laugh at this? The minute you do, it gets serious on you. And the minute you take it really seriously as Die Hard horror, it gets becomes a comic book on you. So it's a very weird film that way.
That pogo stick scene fucked me up.
Yeah, the pogo scene. Yeah, that one, I think, hands down from the first one's probably going to be the best scene.
And to partially get back to answer you, part 4 is close to my heart just for the sheer volume of makeup effects, creating the spider monster, Mitten Spider. There's so many makeup effects gags in there. That was Brian Trenchard Smith directing, and he had done part 3, and we got along great. And by part 4, he was really collaborative. Like, hey, Gabe, we got some deaths. Do you have any ideas? And I saw early on he really embraced cartoon sensibilities. So I was pitching things like the pan in the face and make a circle face, and he thought that was wildly appropriate from an effects creator, that's great empowerment because he gives you confidence that you're getting the tone of the film right. But then it allows you to go off and build it really exciting because you have a little bit of ownership of the gag. And so part 4 was fun for many effects like that.
Yeah, and I'm a big fan of 3 as well. I will say you can say whatever you want about the Leprechaun movies, whether this one was good, this one was bad. The makeup on the Leprechaun and Warwick's performance were always great.
Agreed.
Well, thanks. Yeah, maybe that gets back to what I was saying before. We always took it seriously, and it's when you're lucky enough to do a job that you like, makeup effects, and again, I dare say Warwick is very modest in his successes too. You want to deliver the goods, and at the end of the day, unless I'm doing my own job, I'm a commercial artist. The studio comes to me, and I have to decide how am I going to make this to serve the film. It'll obviously have my influences, style on it, and hopefully that's why they came to me. But my job is to elevate the film the more, and it's really cool when the film starts having success. Every studio wants their franchise. That's the gold at the end of the road. So when the film was a hit and began to get sequel after sequel, I, for one, thought it was a great privilege and took it very seriously to deliver it. Again, I can't control the tone of the film or how it's going to be seen, but I'll definitely respect that they're asking me back, and that mission accomplished. Let's keep doing it as best as we can.
Yeah, and I'd love to see Warwick come back at some point and play Leprechaun again, because I definitely miss his Leprechaun.
Yeah, he's excellent. He really he's a good example of any role he plays, whether it's covered in prosthetics or on his own, he elevates it.
For sure. And I definitely like to thank you for joining us today. And it's been great to talk about all these movies, really, that we grew up with. And,
sure, my pleasure.
And do you have any projects upcoming?
We do have some stuff we're developing. We're doing a couple art projects now. I'm really lucky in that my studio, Atlantic West Effects, we split our time. I mean, it's primarily films, but sometimes we do photo shoots. Sometimes we work with contemporary artists. Sometimes people reach out for me to do conceptual sketches as sculptures, which is something I'm doing now. So kind of lucky that grab bag keeps it interesting.
And where can people find you online to keep up with your projects?
Well, what would you say? What are the biggest places out there?
I'd say probably Instagram or Twitter.
Well, I'm not active on any social media, but I've seen people like to post stuff like that, and they seem to be pretty thorough. a lot of times people that work for me like to represent the work that they do, as they should, because they're very talented and help make ends meet. So with social media being everywhere, I think if anybody is interested in my work or world, they could do that. And I do have an active website for our studio, AtlanticWestEffects.net. And that actually is the answer to your question. That has a full gallery of works past and present. It teases my upcoming personal film projects, shows off collaborations with bands and photo shoots. So that's probably it. AtlanticWestEffects.net is a good place to start.
Okay, thank you for that. And once again, thank you for being on today. It was a real pleasure getting to talk to you. And hopefully we'll do this again soon.
Right on. My pleasure. Thanks so much. You guys have a good one.
You too. Thanks to all the horror hounds and smokers out there for tuning in. And thanks again to Gabe Bartalos for joining us today. Gabe's just such a legend in the industry, and it was awesome getting to talk to him about a lot of his work. And like I said, Skin Deep is a hidden gem from the mid-aughts. Pick up the Blu-ray from Severin Films now, you won't be disappointed. Make sure to follow us on social media on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at High on Horror 420. You can always email us at highonhorror420@gmail.com. Make sure to check out our website, highonhorror.com, and you can sign up for our newsletter and get the latest episode and guest announcements delivered directly to your inbox. And I think that'll about wrap her up. Catch you later.
Bye, everybody.